8 years cooking S-rank dungeon meat to perfection. Her orders, her tastes, her power. But when I told her I was done, that kitchen exploded in anger and heartbreak. Because I wasn't just the chef who made her the strongest hunter alive. I was the only one who truly saw her beyond the power. The frost serpent's brain hit the pan at exactly 180 degrees. Steam erupted, carrying the sharp scent of glacier ice and ancient hunger. I adjusted the flame by instinct, feeling the mana signature pulse against my burned forearms. The merger hinges on this meal. Yeji had told me 3 hours ago. Park Jungo needs to feel brilliant. Make him believe every thought he has tonight is genius. So I was cooking cognitive enhancement. The frost serpent's neural tissue would sharpen his mind for 72 hours, long enough to sign papers he'd later regret. The 88th floor dining hall gleamed with enchanted crystal and subdued lighting. Through the kitchen window, I watched Park Jungo laugh at something Yeji said, his corporate smile not quite reaching his eyes. He controlled 30% of Seoul's Eastern dungeon permits. She wanted all of it. I plated the dish, seared neural tissue on a bed of D-rank moss deer reduction, garnished with crystallized ember moth wings. The mana preservation sat at 97%. Perfect. Course 4, I announced. The server carried it out. I watched Park Jungo take his first bite. His pupils dilated. His posture shifted, subtle, hungry. The enhancement was taking hold. This is extraordinary, he breathed. I've never tasted anything like. Chairwoman Sienwo, where did you find this chef? This story is powered by Butterfly Stories on Patreon, where we continue the stories you love. Want more? Link in the description. Smiled her glacier smile. He found me. 8 years ago. By the 8th course, Park Jungo was signing the merger documents with trembling hands. His mind was racing so fast he couldn't see the unfavorable terms. He thought he was a genius negotiator. He was just high on my cooking. The guests left at midnight. I stayed to clean. As always. Do-on. Her voice came from the doorway. Yeji had changed from her corporate armor into something softer, a gray cashmere sweater that made her look almost human. The faint luminescent scars on her collarbone caught the dim light. Chairwoman, stop. She crossed to the kitchen counter, pulling herself onto the marble surface like she'd done 100 times before. It's just us. I reached into the cold storage and retrieved tonight's experiment, a reduction made from B-rank shadow hair liver, meant to enhance night vision permanently. I've been working on it for 3 weeks. She accepted the small dish without ceremony, closed her eyes, tasted. Bitter, she said, but it settles into something warm, like being afraid of the dark. As a child, then realizing you can see in it. I nodded, making a mental note. Her palate never lied. The merger went through, she continued, voice softer now. Father would have needed 6 months of negotiations. I did it in 1 dinner. Park Jungo will realize he's been manipulated. By then, the contracts will be ironclad. She set down the dish. I hate these dinners. Everyone watching. Everyone wanting something. You got what you wanted. Did I? She looked at me. Then, and for a moment, the iron heiress disappeared. I saw the woman who'd eaten my cooking in silence for 8 years, who only relaxed when the doors were closed and the guests were gone. Sometimes I wonder if any of it matters. The power. The deals. What's it for, Do-on? I didn't answer. I never did. That was our ritual. She asked questions into the void, and I listened, while preparing the next dish. But tonight, the question hit different. What's it for? I finished cleaning at 2 in the morning. My quarters in Sienwood Tower were comfortable. 3 rooms, a private kitchen, a view of Seoul's glittering skyline. A golden cage. The resignation letter sat in my desk drawer. I'd written it 17 times over 2 years. Each version was more honest than the last. I pulled out the current draft and read it again. Chairwoman Sienwo, I am grateful for 8 years of unprecedented opportunity. However, I must pursue my own path. My grandmother's face flashed through my mind. As I folded the paper, she'd been a street food vendor before the dungeons appeared. On her deathbed, she'd gripped my hand and made me promise. Open a restaurant with our family name. Cook food that makes ordinary people happy, not just powerful. I'd been 24. Young. Hungry. When Yeji offered me access to ingredients I'd only dreamed of, I took the deal. 8 years later, I was platinum flame ranked and completely unknown to the public. Every dish I'd ever created belonged to her. Tomorrow. I would do it tomorrow. Director Kwon Taeson's office was on the 85th floor, the administrative buffer between Yeji and the rest of the company. I arrived at 7 in the morning, letter in hand. Chef Gong. Kwon looked up from his desk with those flat, dead eyes. Unusual to see you outside the kitchen. I need this delivered to Chairwoman Sienwo. I placed the envelope on his desk. Personally, he didn't open it, but something shifted in his expression, a flicker of interest that made my skin crawl. A resignation, he said, not a question. How? You've been unhappy for 2 years. A blind man could see it. He picked up the envelope, turning it over in his manicured fingers. Do you know what you're worth, Chef Gong? My salary is... I'm not talking about salary. He stood, moving around the desk with predatory grace. I'm talking about your memory cooking, your essence preservation, your ability to cook SSS-rank dungeon creatures without losing their enhancement properties. There are exactly 0 other chefs in Asia who can do what you do. I said nothing. My hands stayed at my sides, but my heart was pounding. Kwon Taeson smiled, cold, calculating, and slipped my resignation letter into his jacket pocket. Let's discuss what your freedom is actually worth to certain interested parties. Your ability to cook dungeon creatures at platinum flame quality. That's not something the Sienwo Group will simply let walk away. Kwon Taeson's smile widened as he pulled a tablet from his desk drawer. Numbers scrolled across the screen, account transfers, property deeds, restaurant permits already filed in my name. 3 billion won startup capital. A location in Gangnam with existing dungeon-grade kitchen infrastructure. Exclusive supplier contracts for B-rank ingredients and above. He set the tablet between us. All I need in return is information. Yeji's dungeon expedition schedules. Her creature sourcing contacts. Which guild leaders she's meeting and when. My jaw tightened. 8 years of watching corporate snakes had taught me to recognize venom when I saw it. You want me to spy on her. I want you to secure your future. He leaned forward, cologne thick enough to taste. The chairwoman is unstable. Surely you've noticed. Her dependence on your cooking has become pathological. When you leave, and you will leave, she'll destroy you out of spite. Unless you have protection. I thought about the kitchen downstairs. The walk-in freezer holding 3 SS-rank frost serpent fillets I'd been aging for her birthday next month. The way she'd smiled, actually smiled, when I'd serve her the first SSS-rank dish 7 years ago. Then I thought about what he was really asking. I snatched my resignation letter from his jacket pocket before he could react. His eyes went flat and cold. I'll deliver this myself, I said. And Director Kwon? If you approach me again with this kind of offer, I'll tell her exactly what you proposed. His expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. Something that made me think I'd just made a dangerous enemy. I didn't care. I was already making enemies today. Yeji's morning routine was sacred. Black coffee at exactly 6:30, served in her private quarters on the 88th floor, while she reviewed overnight dungeon reports. I delivered that coffee myself for 8 years. Today, I delivered a resignation letter instead. She was standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows when I entered, soul sprawling beneath her like a kingdom waiting to be conquered. Her combat suit from last night's dungeon run was gone, replaced by a silk robe that cost more than most hunters made in a year. You're early, she said without turning. This isn't about coffee. She turned, saw the envelope in my hand. Her eyes, glacier cold, always glacier cold, flickered with something I couldn't name. What is that? I held it out. My formal resignation. Effective 30 days from today. The silence stretched for 3 heartbeats. 4, 5. Then she moved. The coffee cup in her hand shattered against the marble floor. Not thrown, crushed. Her fingers had closed so hard the ceramic simply exploded, spraying hot liquid across the pristine white stone. No. One word. Spoken so softly I almost missed it. Jehi. No. Louder now. Her voice dropped to that dangerous register I'd only heard during negotiations with rival guild masters. Do you have any idea what I've given you? Platinum rank dungeon creatures that would have gone to heads of state. Protection from the 17 assassination attempts other corporations have made on you in the last 3 years alone. I hadn't known about the assassination attempts. My face must have shown it. Oh, you didn't know? She laughed, brittle, as breaking ice. Because I handled them. I buried the people who sent them. I made sure you could cook in peace. While I fought the wars you never had to see. That doesn't mean I owe you my life, your mother's treatments. She cut through my words like a blade. Who do you think supplies the S-rank regeneration meat that keeps her cancer in remission? A private hospital? No. My personal hunting parties. My dungeon permits. My creatures, cooked by your hands, keeping her alive. My blood went cold. She saw it. Smiled without warmth. No one leaves me, Doan. No one. She pulled her phone from her robe pocket and made a single call. Send him up. Now. Cha Min-jae arrived 47 minutes later with a camera crew in tow. He swept into the 88th floor like he owned it, designer chef whites gleaming under the lights. That practiced smile aimed at every lens. Behind him, a producer barked instructions to 3 cameramen already filming. The Iron Heiress herself. Min-jae spread his arms wide, playing to his audience. I'm honored to accept the position of head chef for the Sianwoo private kitchen. My spectacle cooking combined with your incredible dungeon resources will create dishes that will make the culinary world weep. I stood in the corner, watching. My resignation letter was still in my hand and signed by anyone who mattered. Yeji played along beautifully. She smiled for the cameras, made appropriate comments about new directions and fresh perspectives. She didn't look at me once, but I knew her. 8 years of reading her reactions to my food had taught me every micro-expression she had. This was performance. All of it. The real conversation came an hour later. After Min-jae had been given the grand tour and the cameras had finally left, Yeji cornered me in the prep kitchen. The door locked behind her with a soft click. You want to leave? Her voice was steady now. Controlled. Dangerous. Fine. Beat Min-jae in a formal taste duel. Full Culinary Association rules, dungeon ingredients, blind judging panel. Win, and I'll release your contract with a full recommendation. You stay up the hair. And if I lose, you stay another 8 years. She stepped closer. Those are my terms. Take them or try to breach your contract the hard way. And I promise you, the legal hell I will rain down will make those assassination attempts look like love letters. Her ultimatum hung between us like a blade. Then I saw it. Beneath the fury, beneath the control, tears, gathering at the edges of her eyes, furiously blinked back, hidden under all that armor of rage. Her hand shot out and gripped my wrist. Not threatening. Desperate. You're the only one who understands how to cook these creatures properly. Her voice cracked on the last word. Without you, I'm just collecting power I can't use. I accepted. The words left my mouth before logic caught up. 8 more years or freedom. Those were her terms. I'd take the gamble. 3 weeks, Yeji said, composing herself with terrifying speed. Those almost tears vanished like they'd never existed. The taste duel will be held in 3 weeks. Prepare whatever you want. Cook whatever you want. She turned and walked toward the elevator. Yeji. She paused, but didn't look back. I won't lose. The elevator doors closed on her silence. I started making calls within the hour. My first supplier, Han's Dungeon Harvest, had been my go-to for A-rank creature meat for 6 years. The owner picked up on the second ring. Doan, what can I need a Crimson Boar Heart. S-rank preferred, but A-rank will work. Silence stretched. When Han spoke again, his voice had changed. I can't help you. Han, I've been your best customer for, I know. He sounded genuinely pained. But I got a call this morning. My dungeon access permits go up for renewal next month. If I sell to you, they won't be renewed. The line went dead. I called 4 more suppliers. Same story. Different excuses, identical fear. Yeji's shadow fell across every connection I'd built in 8 years. By noon, I had 0 access to any ingredient above D rank. The Sianwoo group hadn't just employed me. They'd surrounded me. I stood in my apartment, the one Yeji owned, and felt the walls closing in. My knives sat in their case. My reinforced whites hung in the closet. All tools I'd earned through skill, now useless without ingredients to transform. Then I remembered a dumpling shop in Mapogu. A woman who'd slapped raw dough into my hands when I was 19 and told me to stop crying about my failures and start fixing them. Bei Sumi's dumpling house looked exactly as it had 15 years ago. 3 plastic tables, a counter barely wide enough for 2 customers, steam rising from bamboo baskets. The smell hit me first: ginger, pork, and something darker beneath it. F-rank salamander liver, seared into the filling. The old woman behind the counter looked up. Her flour-dusted hair had gone fully gray. Her hands still moved like they were arguing with the dough. "You look like shit," she said. "Nice to see you too, master." She came around the counter. I expected a hug. I got a smack to the back of my head that rattled my teeth. 8 years. Another smack. 8 years you work for that ice princess, and not once do you visit, not once do you bring me samples of your precious SSS rank cooking. I was trapped in a golden cage. I know. She grabbed my chin, turning my face toward the light. Her eyes, still sharp enough to read Manhwa signatures in cooked meat, examined me like I was subpar produce. "You've gotten soft. Too much luxury. Not enough struggle. I'm struggling now." "Good." She released me and headed for the back kitchen. Struggle builds flavor. I followed her through the narrow doorway into a space that shouldn't have existed behind such a small storefront. The kitchen stretched back 30 feet, equipped with industrial ranges, specialty prep stations, and I stopped walking. 3 SS-rank creature carcasses hung from ceiling hooks. A tank of living B-rank electric eels hummed in the corner. Vacuum-sealed packages lined industrial refrigerators, each labeled with dungeon coordinates and creature classifications. "Master, how? You think you're the only chef who left a wealthy patron?" She pulled down a package of what looked like C-rank Thunderwolf flank. "I cooked for the Huang family for 12 years. Then I remembered I became a chef to feed people, not power empires." She threw the package at my chest. "You learned to cook S-rank meat in that tower. But you learned to cook here, with scraps, with ingredients other chefs threw away." Her voice hardened. "You want to beat that ice princess at her own game? Start remembering what you actually know. You need access to your own skills." She pointed at the package. "That Thunder Wolf died 3 days ago. Enhancement properties are at 40% and dropping. Most chefs would trash it." I understood. My essence preservation didn't just work on fresh ingredients. I could stabilize degrading meat, pull flavor and power from what others consider garbage. "I can work with this." "Damn right you can." Sumi pulled out her phone. "Now, I know some hunters who don't give a damn about C&W permits. They'll sell to you at fair prices if I vouch. Why are you helping me?" She looked at me like I was an idiot. "Because you're my student, and she's not." She jabbed a finger at my chest. "Also because I want to see the look on that pampered heiress's face when you beat her hand-picked replacement with ingredients she'd used to feed dogs." By evening, I had 3 new suppliers lined up. Underground hunters who operated in dungeons the C&W group had retired due to low profitability. Their ingredients weren't premium, but they were mine. I started test cooking with the Thunderwolf. My memory cooking activated the moment the meat hit the oil. I tasted its history. A creature that had hunted alone, died fighting, carried lightning in its muscles even now. I adjusted heat, timing, seasoning. The enhancement properties stabilized at 68%. Not my best work, but proof I hadn't forgotten. The delivery came at 11 p.m. A-rank sapphire crab, an expensive gift from one of Sumi's contacts meant to test my range. I signed for the insulated container, already planning the preparation. Sapphire crab required precise temperature control. Too hot, and the manna crystallized uselessly. Too cold, and it poisoned the meat. I set up my station, laid out my knives, opened the container. The smell hit me wrong. I froze, knife hovering. My palate reading activated instinctively, not from eating, but from proximity. The crab's mana signature was corrupted. Layered beneath the natural essence was something synthetic, something designed. "Don't touch that." Sumi appeared behind me. She'd followed the delivery, suspicious. As always, she leaned over the container and inhaled once. Her expression went cold. Black spore contamination. Dungeon harvested toxin. She met my eyes. Whoever prepared this knew exactly what they were doing. Cook this, and everyone who eats it gets systemic organ failure within 48 hours. Min Jae. The name tasted like ash. Maybe. She pulled out a testing kit, standard equipment for diamond ladle holders. But let me check something. 5 minutes of analysis. Her face grew darker with each result. Finally, she looked up. This toxin isn't generic. It's been refined to target a specific protein deficiency. She showed me the readout, one that's documented in exactly one person's medical files. I read the results twice to make sure I understood. The contamination would trigger anaphylactic shock in anyone with a severe shellfish allergy. Yeji's documented shellfish allergy. If you'd made this for her, Sumi said quietly. One last meal before you left. A peace offering. A goodbye. She'd be dead, and you'd be charged with murder. Sumi's voice hardened into something I'd never heard before. Pure, cold fury. This wasn't about replacing you, boy. This was about making sure you'd be blamed for her death. Someone had set me up to kill the woman I'd cooked for 8 years. And they'd done it knowing I'd never suspect the ingredients I trusted. The 88th floor of Sianwu Tower gleamed under crystal chandeliers. 500 guests in designer combat wear filled the observation gallery. I stood at my cooking station, hands steady, heart hammering. Chefs approached the ingredient vault. The announcer's voice echoed through the hall. Min Jae strutted past me, smirking. Enjoy your last public cooking, Gong. After tonight, you'll be lucky to flip pancakes at street stall. I didn't respond. The vault doors slid open, revealing temperature-controlled chambers stacked with dungeon creature meat. S-rank frost serpent. A-rank thunderboar. SS-rank phoenix remnants preserved in mana-stabilizing fluid. The 5 judges sat at an elevated table draped in black silk. Sumi occupied the center seat, her diamond ladle pin catching the light. 2 Culinary Association officials flanked her, along with a retired S-rank hunter, and my stomach dropped. Director Kwon Tae-sun, smiling like a shark who'd spotted blood. Tonight's theme, the announcer declared, is memory. Each chef will create a dish representing their defining moment, using dungeon ingredients appropriate to their rank. Min Jae immediately reached for the phoenix meat. Show off. Phoenix remnants required precise thermal control and offered spectacular visual effects. Flames that danced across the plate, colors that shifted with each bite. Perfect for his style. All spectacle. I walked past the rare specimens to a small container at the back. Bronze rank earthen rabbit, the lowest tier creature in the vault. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Is he throwing the match? That's barely better than regular meat. Let them wonder. I carried the humble ingredient to my station and began. My grandmother's doenjang jjigae had been simple. Fermented soybean. If this story has you hooked, Butterfly Stories on Patreon is where the next parts, exclusive continuations, and early releases are waiting. You can start with a free trial right now through the link below. All right, back to the story. Paste, tofu, vegetables, anchovy broth. Nothing fancy. Everything necessary. She made it the day I told her I wanted to be a chef, her arthritic hands moving with 60 years of muscle memory. You cook because you're hungry, she'd said. But you become a chef because you want others to feel full. I'd been 12. Hungry. Always hungry in our cramped apartment in Incheon, where the walls sweated in summer and cracked in winter. The earthen rabbit meat went into the clay pot with practiced efficiency. My knife moved without conscious thought. Brunoise cuts, paper-thin slices, the exact thickness that would release the creature's modest mana signature into the broth. Across the floor, Min Jae was putting on a show. Liquid nitrogen billowed from his station. Phoenix flames erupted in controlled bursts, painting the air orange and gold. The crowd gasped and applauded. I tuned it out. The doenjang paste went in. Then the vegetables cut exactly, as my grandmother had taught me. The broth began to simmer, and I activated memory cooking, not to analyze the dish, but to infuse it. Every memory of that tiny apartment, Every sacrifice my grandmother made so I could attend culinary school. Every dream I'd buried during 8 years of cooking for the wealthy. While ordinary people ate processed dungeon waste. The bronze creature's essence amplified it all. Low-rank ingredients weren't flashy, but they were pure, honest. They carried emotion better than any S-rank specimen because they didn't overwhelm the cook's intent with their own mana. Chefs, present your dishes. Min Jae went first. His phoenix tartare arrived at the judge's table in a cascade of harmless flames, the meat glistening with molecular foam and edible gold leaf. He narrated every element, the foam representing his first Michelin star, the gold his family's legacy, the flames his passion. The judges ate. They nodded politely. The retired hunter noted a 15% stat boost to his fire resistance. Adequate preservation, Sumi said flatly. 43% essence retention. The presentation overshadows the substance. Minji's confident smile flickered. My turn. I set the clay pot on the table without ceremony. Steam rose, carrying the scent of fermented soybean and earth and something deeper, something that made the retired hunter's eyes go distant. This is my grandmother's dunjing jjigae, I said, the dish that made me a chef. Sumi lifted her spoon, tasted. Her eyes widened. The other judges followed. One by one, their expressions shifted. The Culinary Association officials set down their spoons with trembling hands. The retired hunter wiped his eyes with the back of his wrist. 97% essence preservation, Sumi announced, her voice thick. From a bronze-rank ingredient. That shouldn't be possible. It's not just the preservation. The association official stared at his empty bowl. I could taste. I could feel. Love, the retired hunter finished. I felt my mother's kitchen. 40 years ago, Quan hadn't touched his portion. His jaw was tight, eyes calculating. An impressive trick. But surely we can't compare a bronze dish to an A-rank spectacle. The practical enhancement. Check your stats, I said quietly. The hunter's inner face flickered. As he pulled up his status window, his face went pale. 2% permanent increase to all base attributes. From a single bowl of bronze-rank meat, the gallery erupted. Minji's confident mask shattered. He slammed his hands on his station. That's impossible. He must have contaminated the enough. The voice cut through the chaos like a blade of ice. Yeji descended the observation gallery stairs, her heels clicking against marble. She wore white, pristine, glacial white, and her eyes held something I'd never seen before. Not fury, not possession, grief. Director Quan. She stopped 3 feet from the judge's table. I believe you have something to share with the audience. Quan's sharp smile didn't waver. Chairwoman Sienwo. This is hardly the time. Yeji raised her hand. The massive display screens flanking the hall flickered, replacing the cooking footage with documents. Financial records, communication logs, a detailed blueprint of ingredient contamination protocols. 3 days ago, someone tampered with my kitchen's ingredient supply. Her voice carried across the silent hall. They introduced a compound designed to trigger anaphylactic shock in anyone with a specific protein deficiency. My deficiency? The screens displayed more evidence. Quan's authorization codes on black market ingredient transfers. His communications with underground suppliers. A damning trail leading straight to the assassination attempt. You wanted Gong Do-won to kill me. Yeji's voice cracked, just barely. You wanted to destroy the only person who, she stopped. Composed herself. Security. Quan bolted. He made it 3 steps before Yeji's ice erupted from the floor, encasing him to the neck. The judges will now deliberate. They didn't need long. Unanimous decision, Sumi announced. Gong Do-won retains his platinum flame ranking and wins this taste duel without condition. The gallery applauded. Min Jae stood frozen at his station, watching his career crumble. Security dragged Quan's ice-encased form toward the service elevator. I was free. The ranking was mine. No strings. No gilded café. Yeji looked at me across the hall. Her glacier-cold eyes thawed for just a moment, long enough for me to see everything she couldn't say. Then she nodded once, turned. walked away without a word. I watched her disappear into the elevator, surrounded by her security detail, alone in a crowd of hundreds. I'd won everything I wanted. So why did it feel like I just lost the only thing that mattered? 3 months. After I won my freedom, I stood in my own kitchen and felt nothing. The braised chimera shore trib sat perfectly plated. Temperature exact. Presentation flawless. The A-rank meat's enhancement properties preserved at 96%, better than any chef in Seoul could manage. I tasted it and wanted to throw the plate against the wall. "You're cooking angry." Sumi's voice came from the doorway. She'd let herself in through the service entrance, flour still dusting her gray hair from her morning dumpling prep. "Been watching you through the window for 10 minutes. Your knife work looks like you're murdering the ingredients instead of honoring them. The technique is perfect. Perfect technique, dead food." She crossed my station and took a bite without asking. Chewed slowly. Swallowed. "This tastes like a man trying to prove something." "Who are you fighting, Do-won?" I didn't answer. She didn't need me to. "Grandmother's table opens in 2 weeks," she said. "And you're still cooking like you're in a taste duel against the entire Culinary Association." "Against her." She set down her chopsticks. "I left my patron 40 years ago. Took me 5 years to stop cooking angry. You don't have that long." She left me standing in my empty restaurant, surrounded by technically perfect food that tasted like nothing. The news found me that night. Director Kwan's arrest had triggered a full investigation into Manhwa Group's dungeon operations. Stock prices had crashed 30%. 3 board members had resigned. In Yeji, I read the article twice. Iron Heiress hasn't been seen publicly in 6 weeks. Sources report Manhwa Yeji has withdrawn from all hunter activities and board meetings. Speculation suggests her combat abilities have significantly declined without access to her former private chef's enhancement cooking. The photo accompanying the article showed her leaving a hospital. She looked thin, hollow. The glacier-cold eyes I knew were just empty. She wasn't eating dungeon-enhanced food. She was surviving on commercial meal replacements. Her body, dependent on 8 years of my cooking, was rejecting ordinary nutrition. I told myself it wasn't my problem. I told myself she'd made her choices. I told myself leaving was the right thing. Then I called my ingredient supplier and ordered the same A-rank frost serpent I'd used 8 years ago, the day I first cooked for her. Manhwa Tower security didn't stop me. They recognized my face. Some of them had eaten my cooking at staff appreciation dinners, back when I thought making Yeji's employees loyal to her was part of my job. The elevator carried me to the 88th floor without requiring authorization. The private dining hall was dark. "Empty. You shouldn't be here." Her voice came from the shadows near the window. Seoul's lights painted her silhouette, and even in darkness I could see how much weight she'd lost. "Neither should you." I set my knife roll on the counter and began unpacking. "When did you last eat something real?" "I don't need your pity." "Good. Because I'm not offering it." I ignited the burner. The blue flame cast dancing shadows across my scarred forearms. "I'm offering dinner. 1 meal. Not as your employee. Not as your possession. Just as someone who spent 8 years learning exactly what you need." She didn't move from the window. I cooked anyway. The frost serpent meat required precise temperature control. Too hot, and the enhancement properties crystallized. Too cold, and the mana never activated. I made this dish 1,000 times in my memory, but never like this. Never with trembling hands. Never with something to prove that had nothing to do with rankings. The first dish I ever made her. The meal that convinced her to hire me. This time, I made it perfect. She finally approached when I plated. The dish was simple. Frost serpent medallions in a reduction sauce, accompanied by mana-infused rice and pickled vegetables from a D-rank dungeon garden. Nothing flashy, nothing theatrical, just food made with 8 years of understanding. "Why?" Her voice cracked on the word. "You won. You're free. Why come back?" "Because leaving you didn't mean leaving you alone." I pushed the plate toward her. "Eat. Then we talk." She took the first bite. My palate reading activated without conscious thought. A habit now. After so many years of monitoring her emotional state through food. Why sense made my chest tight. Loneliness, self-loathing, fear, and underneath it all, desperate, starving hope. I try to keep you like a rare ingredient, she whispered, stored in a climate-controlled vault. Preserved. Owned. The words came broken, halting. I didn't know how to. I never learned how to want something without controlling it. I know. I'm sorry. 2 words. Sian Yeji had never apologized for anything in the 8 years I'd known her. I know, I said again. And I'm sorry, too, for leaving the way I did, for not finding words until it was too late. I sat across from her. But I had to leave. Staying meant becoming an extension of you instead of myself. And now I have something to offer you that I didn't before. I pulled a folder from my bag. Business documents. Investment proposals. Grandmother's table opens in 2 weeks. I need a silent partner with distribution connections. You need access to cooking that won't slowly kill you through withdrawal. She stared at the papers. And there's one more condition, I said. Sundays. What about Sundays? I cook for you. Every Sunday. At my restaurant, at your tower, wherever. But by choice. Because I want to. Because the words stuck. Because the food I make for you has always been different, and I finally understand why. Her glacier eyes thawed. Slowly. Painfully. She signed the papers without reading them. Opening night. Grandmother's table was packed. Food critics, hunters, ordinary families who'd won reservation lotteries. All of them tasting dungeon-enhanced cuisine prepared without ego, without competition, without anything to prove. I was plating a B-rank phoenix breast when the door chimed. Yeji walked in wearing civilian clothes. No combat-ready designer fashion. No security detail. Just a woman in a simple dress, looking uncertain for the first time since I'd known her. She sat at my counter. What do you recommend? She asked. I've never ordered off a menu before. Let me surprise you. I cooked her something new. A fusion dish I developed during 3 months of angry experimentation that had finally resolved into something pure. A-rank ingredients treated with the humility of street food, enhanced properties preserved, but presented without pretension. She took her first bite and smiled. Not her media smile, not her business negotiation smile. A real one, soft, surprised, armor completely dissolved. My palate reading activated. Joy, trust, and something else, something I've been too afraid to name for 8 years. Go on. Her voice was different now. Open. I can taste it. Everything you couldn't say. Everything I was too controlling to hear. She reached across the counter and took my hand. I finally understand. Letting go. The restaurant's lights flickered, then died. Emergency power kicked in 3 seconds later, casting everything in red. My phone buzzed. Sumi's number. Go on. Her voice was ice. Turn on the news. Now. I grabbed the remote. The screen flickered to life. Breaking news footage showed dungeon gates erupting across Seoul. Not 1, not 2, but 17 simultaneous breaks. SSS-rank creatures poured into the streets. The Korean Hunter Association headquarters was already overrun, but that wasn't what made my blood freeze. The camera zoomed in on the largest gate, the one forming directly above Sianwood Tower, and standing at its threshold, wreathed in corrupted mana that should have killed any human instantly, was Director Kwon Tae-sun, alive, transformed, and smiling directly into the lens, as if he could see me through it. Thank you for the meal, Chef Gong. His voice echoed from every screen in the restaurant. The SSS-rank creature meat you cooked for Yeji over 8 years? I've been collecting samples, analyzing them. He raised one hand, and the dungeon gate above the tower tripled in size. Seoul falls tonight, and when it does, I'll be waiting at grandmother's table for your final dish. The broadcast cut to static. Yeji's hand tightened on mine, her ice powers crackling to life around us both. Want to see what happens next? Continue this story on Butterfly Stories over on Patreon. Start your free trial to unlock the next episodes. Link in the description.